There is something no one has told you yet, something your conscious mind has avoided naming because naming it means facing it. And what you are about to hear is not a sweet fantasy, not a romantic promise, and not empty comfort. It is a deep look into what may be happening inside another person. Someone who thinks about you, even if they have never said it. Someone whose mind returns to you in the quietest moments, when distraction stops working and truth starts getting louder. But here is the hard part. What this person is going through right now is not simple. It is not easy, and it has everything to do with you, even if you are not physically close to them at this moment. This is where most people get it wrong. They think real love arrives in a clear and neat way. They think it comes with easy choices, direct talks, and perfect timing. But the human mind does not move like that. Very often, what we want most is what we push down the hardest. And what gets pushed down does not disappear. It builds pressure. It grows in silence. Then one day, it rises as inner conflict, restless nights, confusing dreams, and delays that make no sense on the surface. This person is in that exact place now. And if you found this message, some part of you may already know it. Something inside you has been feeling that this connection is moving under the surface. Stay with me, because this is where it gets deeper. Most people only judge what they can see, but what controls everything is often what no one sees at all. The biggest choices in human life are rarely made in the bright space of logic. They are made in the hidden inner world, the quiet place where unspoken desires live, where fear mixes with hope, and where truth waits behind layers of self-protection. In that hidden space, you take up far more room in this person than they would ever admit out loud. And that matters, because when someone tries to forget you and cannot, when they try to move forward and something inside keeps pulling them back, when they build emotional walls and those walls crack at the worst possible time, that is not nothing. That is the language of something real. That is what happens when the heart knows something the mind is still trying to control. This person is being tested, and the test is much deeper than it looks from the outside. Part of them knows exactly what they want. Maybe they have known for a long time. Maybe from the very first moment the connection shifted into something harder to explain. But another part of them is full of rules, pressure, old fears, and the need to stay safe. That part listens to other people's expectations. It remembers past pain. It fears rejection. It fears being too open with someone who matters too much. And that creates a dangerous silence. The silence between what is felt and what is said, between what is wanted and what is allowed. That silence is not peace. It is pressure. It is inner war. And right now, that war may be breaking down the sense of control this person has spent years trying to build. If you have ever felt their pull and their distance at the same time, keep listening, because that mixed signal may not be coldness at all. Right now, this person may be living through one of the most confusing experiences a human being can face. They may feel completely sure of their emotions and at the same time feel unable to act on them. Why? Because action means risk, and risk means the chance of loss. And losing you does not feel like losing just anyone. Losing you would mean losing something they are not sure they could ever find again. Here is the most uncomfortable truth. Their deepest fear may not even be your rejection. Their deepest fear may be discovering that what they feel is completely real. Because if it is real, then they can no longer hide behind confusion. They would have to do something. They would have to choose. They would have to become emotionally brave in a way that logic alone can never fake. Most people confuse silence with indifference. They see someone who does not move and assume that person does not care. But often the strongest defenses are built, not against what means little, but against what means too much. Think about that. Every wall they raised toward you, every careful step back, every moment they seemed to retreat just when something beautiful was starting to grow. Those moments may not have come from lack of feeling. They may have come from fear. Fear dressed as control. Fear dressed as pride. Fear dressed as distance. No one builds very high walls around things that do not matter. The highest walls are built around what feels most valuable. And that is why this matters more than it seems. Don't click away, because the next part may explain the very behavior that has confused you the most. When desire is pushed down again and again, it does not simply vanish. It changes shape. It turns into tension, strange sadness, irritation, mental exhaustion, and the constant feeling that something is missing even when life looks normal from the outside. It becomes sleepless nights. It becomes dreams that return without warning. It becomes the odd ache of missing someone who may still be technically present somewhere in your world, but not in the way your heart wants. That may be what is happening now, and before you focus only on the other person, there is something else you need to hear. You have been carrying something too. You have had moments when thoughts of this connection appeared out of nowhere. Moments when a wave of feeling hit you and you could not fully explain it. Moments when desire and uncertainty blended together so tightly that you could not tell which one was speaking louder. That matters because in deep emotional bonds, what happens inside one person does not always stay there. It moves, it leaks, it is felt in ways the conscious mind cannot easily track, but the body and deeper mind often sense with surprising accuracy. This test that the other person is facing has many layers, and you need to understand all of them if you want to understand why this connection has moved the way it has. The first layer is obvious: fear of pain. They may have been hurt before, maybe not by you, maybe not even in a similar situation. But old pain does not always care about details. It gets projected onto new love. A broken promise from the past can make a new truth feel dangerous. And when that happens, love starts to look like a risk that must be managed, not a gift that can be received. The second layer is darker and harder to admit. It is the fear of not being enough. This fear lives quietly inside many people, even the ones who seem strong and certain. Somewhere inside, this person may be asking, what if I am finally given the chance to be deeply loved, and I cannot hold it? What if what I feel is real, but I am not enough to keep something this meaningful alive? That fear can be even more freezing than rejection. Rejection hurts, but at least the mind can explain it. But to get close to everything you want, and then fear that you might fail inside it, that touches a much older wound. A wound tied to shame. A wound tied to the parts of the self that were hidden, silenced, or judged in the past. And you may be connected to that hidden wound more than you realize, because you represent the possibility of real closeness. Not surface attraction, not temporary comfort, real closeness. The kind that asks a person to be seen without armor. The kind that asks them to show parts of themselves they are still learning to accept. That can be terrifying. Then comes the third layer, the conflict between what the mind wants to believe and what the heart already knows. The thinking mind creates stories. It says the timing is bad. It says the situation is too hard. It says there are too many obstacles. It says distance is wiser. But deeper inside, another truth may already be fully awake. A truth that does not wait for permission. A truth that says what they feel for you is not something they can manage forever with logic. And that gap between the story and the truth grows larger over time. Watch till the end, because this gap is where everything starts to turn. That growing gap creates pressure, and pressure cannot rise forever without changing something. This is why the test they are facing is not mainly external. It is not just about work, timing, distance, or life conditions. It is an inner test, the hardest kind. The test of being honest with themselves about what they truly want, what they truly feel, and who they are beneath all their defenses. Most people around them do not see this. They only see the outer image, the strength, the independence, the calm face. the person who seems to know exactly what they are doing. They do not see the private doubt. They do not see the late-night struggle. They do not see how often the mind returns to this connection when everything else gets quiet. But on some level, you may feel it. And that alone says something, because when two people are deeply tied, there can be a kind of resonance. One inner world starts touching the other, even through silence, even through space, even when nothing obvious is being said. And that changes everything. What this person may be learning through this difficult time is the painful difference between protecting themselves from life and actually living it. That lesson hurts. It hurts exactly because it matters. But here is what makes this even more intense. You are not standing outside of this process. You are part of it. The way you hold this connection inside yourself matters. The way you handle your own fear, your own doubt, and your own hidden feelings shapes the energy of this bond more than you think. Deep connections do not happen only between two calm, logical people. They happen between two full inner worlds, both carrying history, patterns, silence, hope, and pain. And those unseen worlds are always in contact, even when the visible relationship looks still. That is why this connection has not been simple. That is why it has not moved in a neat, straight line. Real bonds that touch deep layers of the self rarely move that way. Superficial connections are easy to drop, easy to replace, easy to forget. But the ones that disturb your inner life, the ones that stay with you, the ones that keep returning no matter how much you try to explain them away, those are different. That kind of inner disturbance is not always a sign that something is wrong. Sometimes it is evidence that something matters more than either person is ready to admit. There is a pattern here that shows up in many powerful emotional conflicts. A person can want something deeply and fear it deeply at the same time. Desire and resistance can live side by side, aimed at the same person, in the same heart. That is one reason this feels so intense. This person may be trying to integrate both sides right now. The side that longs for you, and the side that fears what being with you would require. That process cannot be forced from the outside. It cannot be rushed. It cannot be manipulated. But it can be supported by honesty. And this is where your role becomes real. If you are also acting from fear, if you are also stepping back in the same way they step back, then what looks like separation may actually be a mirror. Two people reflecting each other's fear and calling it distance. Most people never see that. They assume one person cares more, or one person has all the power, or one side is cold while the other side is sincere. But deeper emotional patterns are rarely that simple. In strong connections, what one person avoids, the other often feels. What one person suppresses, the other can accidentally trigger. And the silence between them becomes full, not empty, full of unsaid truths, full of questions, full of feelings that neither side has fully dared to speak. So now the real question appears. What are you doing with what you already know? Because this is no longer only about what your person may be feeling. It is also about whether you have been fully honest with yourself. Have you admitted what you want? Have you faced what you feel? Have you looked closely at the ways you have used timing, caution, wisdom, or circumstance as a shield? Sometimes the most advanced form of fear is not denial. It is delay. It is waiting forever while calling that waiting maturity. It is saying not yet when the deeper truth is simply I am afraid. And that pattern may be living in this connection on both sides. This person may practice it. And if you are honest, maybe you do too. That shared delay has weight. It has consequences. It cannot continue forever without changing the shape of the bond. Because there comes a point when repression starts turning into resignation. And resignation can slowly become closure. Not because the feeling was never real, but because the deeper mind decides the risk no longer feels worth taking. That is how windows close while both people are still staring at them, hoping the other will move first. Read that again in your mind. because that may be one of the most important truths in this whole message. This person's test includes a moment when something inside asks them, have you done your part? Have you faced your own fear? Have you admitted what you are bringing into this bond? And now the same question turns toward you. Have you done your part? Have you looked at your own mirror? Because this connection may not be blocked only by circumstances. It may be blocked by the inner defenses both of you still call protection. Something is changing, though. That matters. A layer of defense in this person may already be cracking, not because they are weak, but because what they feel has been pushed down for too long. And when emotion is held under pressure long enough, it starts finding its way back. Not in a neat, planned, controlled way. It returns as sudden clarity at an inconvenient hour. It returns as a wave of emotion that asks for attention. It returns as a thought that will not leave. It returns as a physical sense that something must change, even if the person cannot yet explain what or how. This is the dangerous turning point, because when that clarity rises, it can move in different directions. If they reach outward and find only coldness, only absence, only signs that the space between you is fully closed, they may retreat into defense again. They may tell themselves their fear was right all along. They may choose control over vulnerability one more time. But if they reach outward and find something else, if they find steadiness, if they find presence, if they find that the connection still has life in it, then that moment of clarity can become the shift everything has been building toward. And here comes the hard part. This test is not something they can resolve completely alone. Not because they are helpless, but because this kind of emotional truth often asks for response from the other side. It asks whether the other person is also willing to move, also willing to be honest, also willing to stop hiding behind delay. That is the center of it all. Not just what they feel, but what both of you are willing to do with what is true. If this is speaking to your situation, stay with the feeling, because the next truth may be the one that changes how you see everything. The outer obstacles may look real. Time, distance, life complications, mixed signals, other responsibilities. But many times, those outer blocks become the stories people use so they do not have to face the deeper block inside, fear. Fear living in the space between what the heart knows and what the person is brave enough to act on. And if this connection has moved in waves, if there has been a pattern of coming close and pulling back, of clarity followed by confusion, of warmth followed by silence, that does not automatically mean the bond is false. Sometimes it means both people are carrying similar fears and triggering them in each other. A dance of mirrors. One steps back. The other feels it and steps back too. One waits. The other senses uncertainty and waits longer. Then both start reading the silence as proof of something negative, when in truth the silence may be full of feeling neither side knows how to hold. This is why the test is so intense. Because it asks for something rare. It asks for inner honesty before outer certainty. It asks each person to stop studying the other person's behavior long enough to study their own fear. There may still be something in you that you have not named, because naming it would mean admitting how much this matters. Maybe you have also been measuring, calculating, and questioning whether what you feel is real or whether it is only the shape of a wish. Maybe you have also created distance at key moments. Maybe you have also chosen ambiguity, because ambiguity, while painful, asks less of you than clear truth does. That is human, but it is not neutral. A bond cannot live forever in a place where both hearts are waiting for safety before they allow honesty. At some point, one of the two has to stop worshipping caution and start listening to what is real. So here is the final truth. The question is not only whether this person is going through a major inner test. The question is whether you are willing to meet your own. Whether you are willing to admit that this connection may matter more than you have let yourself say. whether you are willing to see that protection and wisdom are not always the same thing, whether you are willing to ask yourself if the story you have repeated about timing, distance, or complexity is fully true or only partly true. Because what is happening here may not be random at all. It may be the result of two people standing at the edge of the same emotional truth, each one hoping the other will cross first, and that cannot go on forever. Something eventually bends, something opens, or something closes. That is why this moment matters. The person you are thinking about may be reaching a point where what they feel can no longer stay buried without cost. Their silence may not last forever. Their distance may not mean what it seemed to mean. Their hesitation may not be a lack of care, but a battle between desire and fear that has grown too loud to ignore. But none of that removes your part in this. What will you do with what you feel? What will you do with what you know? Will you keep calling fear wisdom? Will you keep dressing delay as timing? Or will you finally become honest enough with yourself to see the bond for what it is, without forcing it, without chasing it, but without lying to yourself either? Because in the end, the deepest test is not whether love exists. It is whether two people can stop hiding long enough to let truth breathe. And once that happens, everything can change.